Joining us this morning, Crawford County Commissioner, Mr. Eric Henry. Good morning. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Doing good.
I can't believe we're already through the first month of the new year.
Yeah, February 1st. Yeah.
What happens in the first month, especially when you have new members joining you? What's the process? What's going on behind the scenes?
In the beginning of every year, the commissioners kind of divvy up departments and oversee those departments. So we're really doing individual work to see what those departments' needs are, try to improve some of their day-to-day operations, and if they need extra people, if they need more equipment, if they need more resources, we try and help them. Every Monday we actually meet together as a group, and then we give that information to each other and talk about it. But really, it's a lot of divide and conquer right now.
Now, when it comes to boards, commissions, things like that need filled, are you looking for them to step in? Do you look for community members to when you cover municipal meetings? There's this committee and this committee. We need folks to step up in the community and serve on these boards. What sort of things are going on like that behind the scenes?
Well, that's actually a good point. There are multiple appointments that the commissioners are required to be on boards of. So we've sorted those out too. Like Commissioner Seeley's on the CATA board, for example. I'm on Workforce Development Board, just as another example. And those meetings are actually scheduled into our normal schedule. So I know, like for myself, tomorrow is my first meeting on the Northwest Commission, which is a regional approach towards economic development, which is great. I'm looking forward to that. That's down in Franklin. Commissioner
Commissioner
Wierspan did it forever, and he did a great job. And I'm looking forward to meeting the staff and seeing what direction that group goes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You find out a lot about what's going on in our region when you serve on a board like that. What's your take when you talk to companies in Crawford County? I mean, is there a lack of trained professionals out there? Are we trying to provide the opportunities for folks?
Yeah, I think it's workforce issues. Everybody has the same issues. Accutech, for example, a great organization, great company in Crawford County, and they're doing great things and receiving awards as we go along the way. I think they could fill 60 positions, from what I understand the other day, and that kind of hampers them on what contracts they can take, what they can fill. But it really comes down to manpower. I mean, people need more laborers and more workers, and there's opportunity out there for you to be trained and to get certainly a well-paid job in Crawford County.
Yeah, you don't really have to look that far,
Nope.
And there's a lot of people jumping up and down. How does that translate onto what you do with the commissioner side in the county? Obviously, you're not creating jobs, but you're also trying to create an environment where these things can happen. So is it you just trying to figure out how you can facilitate those needs?
Yeah, I think I tell people this, and I have for over 4 years now. If you live in Crawford County, you should care about Crawford County. You should be a cheerleader for Crawford County. You want Titusville to succeed. You want Meadville to succeed. You want people to move here. And a lot of times people's negativity and their attitude sometimes makes it sound like, there's nothing to do here, or why do you want to live here? The weather's terrible, and all those things. You really have to advocate for this county. Like I love Crawford County. I've lived here all my whole life, and I think we just need to keep developing more ways to get people to come here and live here. And that's everything. It's whether you pay more taxes, it's blighted property, it's opportunities for jobs, it's parks and recreation and green space. There's so many things that affect what people want to live, including school districts. They want good school district for their kids. It's one of the first things that professionals ask. What's the school district like? That's important for them.
We were just talking about this earlier this morning, Amy and I. It seems like, and I heard this quote yesterday, somebody was saying, why are you such a positive person? And the guy said, well, I had a good coach that told me years ago that I can either fuel somebody in their positivity, or I can drain that. And it seems like you go online and there's people that kind of want to drain. And I don't know, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it isn't. But it can be just as simple as, meeting that person that just moved into a community. And instead of saying, why would you move here? You could say, hey, what brought you here?
Yeah.
I mean, just like that changes the attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had somebody catch me the other day, just from the general public, who said, hey, are you Commissioner Henry? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I pray for you a lot. I said, I thank you. I said, why is that? And she said, well, I see you on social media, and you respond to people who are negative. I said, I do, because I think it's important that people have, first of all, people should always have access to their elected officials, and I'll talk to anybody. My phone number has always been public. It has been for now going on 5 years, and I've talked to some of those individuals. I I won't agree with everything they say, and they won't agree with me. But at the end of the day, that's what we really need to do. That's how you solve problems, I think, is to talk to each other and try to come up with a solution you can both become amenable to. So
Yeah, it's hard to be completely upset with somebody when they're open to a conversation, right? But, I mean, if you were just to say, no, I'm not going to talk to you at the grocery store, they could get mad. But you're like, no, what's going on?
yeah, I absolutely tell people. Like I've told people online. I've called people. They've called me. They've stopped at the office. That's the answer for me, is to talk things out. Social media has good and bad aspects. I love the fact that I can see my nieces and nephews and see what they do in Arizona every day. But at the other side of it, I also learn things about me that I didn't know before. So, but there's good things and bad things about it. But I think at the bottom line is you really have to advocate for where you live and advocate for people to come and move here, because in 10 years from now, what's the workforce going to look like? These companies who want to come here, the first question they ask is, do you have people to work for us? And the answer is no. And we need to continue to find ways to get those people.
Would people be surprised at the number of companies that have reached out to you or city managers in our county and just asked the question, hey, I'm looking for, property, or we're looking to maybe put a business or a chain in, here. Would people be surprised at those phone calls?
I think they would be surprised about that, and I would think they also would be surprised about what these economic organizations are doing. The Northwest Commission and EPAC in Crawford County, they would be surprised at the organizations who have reached out, who have been successful or had potential. And a lot of the questions that they ask are just those things, like how's the broadband, how's the internet? A lot of work from home opportunities. A lot of people who live in or work in Pittsburgh might want to live more rurally and have lower tax base, but still be able to do their job, but they want internet. And so all those questions we ask, but you would be surprised by the number of businesses who are certainly interested. Just
had a conversation yesterday. We had somebody move into our neighborhood, I don't know, beginning of the year or school year. And I always tell Amy, like, I feel bad we haven't taken over that welcome gift yet, which we normally do. But our middle son goes to school with one of the kids. And so we were asking, like, well, what are they like? And, we haven't really seen them out, and what brought them here. And their comment was, well, according to their kid, they came because they really love the recreational opportunities we have here. And it's like, oh, that's good to know, and that's fantastic that they picked this area because of that.
Yeah, I think green space is really important. Of course, French Creek for us, Oil Creek over here, the trail system. I mean, Ernst Trail, Calvin Ernst is doing a tremendous job. I mean, you can now take the Ernst Trail from Meadville through Client Lake, and they're trying to connect it to Lyonsville. So if you're looking for a nice recreational ability to get some exercise and see the actual woods and the beautiful parts of Crawford County, they're working on those things. I think that's important to people.
So again, there's a situation. How does the county help in that? Is it those communities first trying to identify what needs there are to make that happen, and then they come to the county, or do you guys step in and you're along with them with this whole process?
So I think the key to us in the county is our planning office and our planning commission. I'm happy to say we have some great representation from Ticeville. Jess Hilburn's doing a great job now. She is now the chairman of the planning commission, which is very exciting. And she's really working towards driving this narrative of the county forest. We've invested in some signage, so in the very near future there'll be a lot of signs. A lot of people don't know about the county forest, but they will very soon. And they've renamed the forest. There's going to be an open house coming up, and we also want to do some trails in the county forest. It's 400 plus acres. It's just outside of Hightown. Those are the things that we want to use to start drawing people in here.
Oh, that's incredible. See, there's a lot going on.
Yep.
Now, obviously, just getting through the first month, your other two partners there in the commissioner's office, there's a lot to take in. But as we talked last month, they aren't new to a lot of these situations. They've spent a lot of time in the courthouse.
Yeah, they have. And to be honest with you, I have a tremendous amount of respect for both of them. And I think what they've seen in the first month is exactly what I saw in my first month was no matter how much you think you know, you don't. And at the end of the day, it's just a lot of information. Commissioner Shell has said to me on more than one occasion in the last couple of weeks, that's a lot. I mean, it is because we look and we look at different issues we're dealing with. You come in tomorrow and it could be, we had a water leak it's going to be several $1,000s to repair that we have to be prepared for. Those things, it's anything from that small point to a lawsuit or a human services crisis that we need staffing for. It's different every day, and I think that's one great thing about the job, but it also is the challenge we face every day.
How much of it is sort of a divide and conquer? Like, okay, here's the things I'm going to work on. Christopher Seeley's going to work on this, Scott Shell's going to work on this, and then we'll just update each other. Or how much of it is the three of you together looking at something?
Actually, that's exactly how it happens. It wouldn't work without it. And I'll give you a great example. Commissioner Shell is in charge of the jail. He oversees the jail. He goes out, and actually, it was an interesting story we had yesterday with him. Yesterday, he went out for his weekly visit to the jail, and he actually had lunch with the warden. I think he thought the warden was going to take him out to lunch, but the warden actually left him in for lunch because he actually ate what the inmates ate. And so apparently I have an invitation next week to go try that. But that's how we divide and conquer. I spent my afternoon at Human Services, which is my oversight. And, Commissioner Seeley is in charge of the courts. He oversees the courts liaison. So there's a lot of work going on that we could never do if the three of us had to be together all the time. But every Monday morning with the chief clerk, we all narrate ourselves through a review, and we kind of move on to the next week. And so we kind of summarize what we're doing, and that's really working well for us.
Now, in that scenario, eating lunch there, for example, that's probably a good thing to get a better idea of what's happening.
Well, and actually, Scott had some good points about caloric intake. That, the taste of it is, again, they're an inmate, but they certainly, our job is to make sure they're fed and they meet the caloric intake requirements, and that we're being fair to them when it comes to that. And so he sat down and had the meal, and he learned a lot yesterday just from those different parts of the jail process.
And then now, will you guys? You mentioned meeting, weekly, just to have these conversations. Is that just kind of catching up with everybody?
Yeah,
or is
every Monday morning we do an alphabetical review of every department in Crawford County, and it may be a 90-second note. Everything's good here. To hey, we got to talk about this. We've got an issue here at the jail. We have an issue at Human Services. We have an issue at Public Safety. And all those things kind of meld together, and it kind of gives us a priority list of what we need to work on.
Is it embarrassing that former Commissioner Soff stands outside the window shouting things, or is that?
Well, I mean, so far I haven't seen him or Commissioner Witherspoon at a meeting. They said they were going to come heckle, but I think for Commissioner Soff, I'm not sure. He's got to address to the success there, so I don't know if we'll see him or not. We'll hope so.
All right, that's good. You're watching the Morning Drill on Stream Television and on Armstrong's Neighborhood Channel. Crawford County Commissioner Eric Henry with us here this morning. I think last month when the three of you were on, you had a chance to go out and meet some folks afterwards. How important is doing that in neighboring communities? Visiting Lionsville, Conneaut Lake, Meadville, Titusville, and just to kind of introduce yourselves and kind of figure out what's happening in these communities.
I think it's very important, and it's one thing I've really advocated for. For many years, if you go back to previous commissioner elections, there was always this debate about whether Titusville mattered or not to people. And Titusville matters to me. I worked here for a great part of my life for the hospital as a paramedic.
My dad always asks about you, by the way.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And we always strive to make sure that Titusville feels included. We actually, to be honest with you, one thing we're really proud of is in the Oil Creek Titusville area, we did a grant after the last flood they had to help offset costs of repairs. Just recently, we actually approved a grant to pay for one half of the generator at the public safety building here. Those are things that the county can do to help Titusville thrive. And again, of course, keep that communication line open with Neil and the city council here. We're certainly willing to come meet, and we want to make sure Titusville feels included all the time.
You don't have to answer this, but do you hear that in other communities, Lionsville, Conneaut Lake, where, hey, we want to be part of the county. We want to feel like we're part of that.
We do, and honestly, it's one of those things where you got to kind of divide and conquer. Chris comes from the western half of Crawford County. Yeah. He has a number of contacts from Lionsville, Conneautville, those areas, and I think that all of us know people from different areas. I'm a Townville guy. I'm from Townville. Scott is from Cockerton, and so we try to keep connected to those people to see if there's any needs they have, and it is important to get out there, though. It certainly is.
Does it ever amaze you just the differences? I mean, we're not that far from these other communities, but the needs for each community seems to be different.
Yeah, actually, it actually is very interesting, and people don't realize that there's areas we have that have infrastructure issues, whether it comes to their water and wells. Some have actually dam issues that they've had to apply for money. We've actually supported and signed letters for. Some of those places I didn't know even had a dam, so it was good that we would know them in small areas. But yeah, they all have definitely different needs.
County awards a lot of contracts. Yeah. Are these things like emergency radio? stuff, for example. Is that stuff that you knew about at the end of the year and worked that into the budget, or are these things that are coming up now?
In most cases, you try to apply it to the budget, but where that sets other commissioners apart is it's how you handle those surprises that you don't know about, because those factors, when you don't have it budgeted, you've got to find ways to pay for it somehow. And so we have a huge digital radio project. It's going to be millions of dollars. We're going to have to find money for that project, and it's going to be expensive, but it's a requirement from the federal government. And just like most higher levels of government, they give us these mandates, but they don't give us any money for them. So we've got to figure out a way to pay for it.
We're coming into the budget season last year. We know there was a lot to kind of shave off. What do you do now coming into the second month of the new year to kind of make sure everything's on track? Is it probably easier said than done?
It is, and I think that I've instilled one thing into the new commissioners is, like, I think about the budget every day. So when someone comes in the office and, hey, our car needs replaced, or we'd like to add a position, those decisions you make in January, February matter for the budget when it comes to the fall. And if we don't do it that way, if you just say yes to everything, you will be in trouble. There's no way you'll balance a budget. So every decision I make, anyways, I try to think about what's the future cost, what's the legacy cost. Is it worth it to fix this car one more time, or should we finally replace it? And at the end of the day, it's just a balance game, really, to see what's the most effective way to keep the money and the budget contained.
I'm not sure if it's just recent history, but it seems like a lot of communities are functioning that way, where it's more like, let's make sure we are talking about budget now in January and February and March, instead of waiting till September, October, and especially into November before we're totally surprised at what we're going to see.
I think it's a key to the success of our budget process, and we do have some department heads, by the way, who monthly check their budget lines and make sure that they're not over. And I love that about them, because when they get to the fall, they know that they're right on line, or they're going to be over, or they have some money that they can maybe replace a computer here and there. But it really requires you to pay attention all the time. And if you wait till August, September, October, and then they say to you, hey, by the way, you're $5 million over budget, that's really your fault, because you didn't know that. We kind of know where we're going with the direction. We know what we have in reserve. We know what we have to pay for. But at the end of the day, we don't want people to pay more taxes. We want them to at least think that we're working towards a solution to keep their taxes down, and that's really our goal.
Department heads, do they stop you in the hall and say, hey, listen, we're looking at the software that might help us be able to do this. I'm going to present this at the meeting. Do they give you a heads up on stuff like that?
They do, and a lot of people, they'll watch a commissioners meeting, they'll say, boy, there's a lot of yes votes. But what I try to explain to them is there's a work session where you talk about stuff, there's a final meeting. At the work session, when a manager says to you, hey, at the work session, I'd like to buy a $100,000 widget, between then that Wednesday, the next Wednesday, there's a lot of discussion. And if the commissioners are just a hard no on buying a $100,000 widget or car or whatever else it is, they don't generally present it, because nobody really wants shot down. Now, if they're really passionate about it, they might. So at that second meeting, those yeses you hear, it doesn't mean there's not a ton of no's between that 7-day period. So most of that discussion is discussion that we say to them, okay, tell us really what this is about. And if they justify it, it gets it to the second meeting, and we vote on it. And in most votes, it's a general consensus this is a good idea. But there are times that item or that description of what they need doesn't make it to the next meeting because there's just not enough support.
What keeps you motivated? You seem, even after the first term, and obviously you ran again, so there was that excitement to wanting to continue with what you're doing. What do you enjoy most about being a commissioner?
I think it's the most challenging job in the world. I mean, and I've been a paramedic and I've owned a business, so I can tell you that both those things are very challenging as well. But it's challenging because you just don't know what you're walking into tomorrow. And so when I leave there at 4:30, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whenever I get out of there, the next day, you just don't know what you're walking into. That's what I like about the job, but it's also the most challenging part of it. And I think anybody who's an elected official should realize that, Chris Soff would always tell me, I don't make a lot of promises, and that's probably a good rule of thumb because you just don't know. But at the end of the day, if you really think about whose money it is that you're spending, I think people respect you for that. Whether they like you or not, it's a different thing, but they respect you because you care about that money, which is theirs.
Pennsylvania primaries coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We're into February, so it's getting a little closer.
Yep.
What's being discussed? And I would assume this is going to be a big year, obviously a presidential year. This brings out a lot of people to vote.
It does. It brings out a lot of people to vote, and I think you'll be segueing into the next 2 months. Commissioner Shell will be here next month, and then Commissioner Seeley. but both of them are really focusing more on elections than I am even. But the key to it is we need poll workers. We need, like always, if you're willing to give us a lot of hours on election day for very little money, that sounds like a great tagline for a job, right? But it's really a good civic duty. We appreciate the people. We love our poll workers we have, but we have a huge shortage of that. Mail-in ballots are already starting to be, the application process is there. The next step will be mailing out those. We'll probably mail out over 10,000 mail-in ballots because that's what people can do and that's how they vote. It's going to be a very difficult year because it's volume. It's the largest amount of voters of any election, and so it certainly causes us to have to ramp up a little bit. But it's definitely going to be a challenge.
End of April, correct?
Yep, correct.
All right, and then Tuesday, November 5th. So if you're keeping track at home, 277 days until the general election.
Wow, that actually, it
doesn't
kind of
seem
puts
like
it
a lot.
perspective, doesn't it? Yeah. So,
and then how about the fair? Will be before that. So
yeah, and the fair is going good. The Commissioner Wiederspan is now on the fair board, and I think that's great because it's a great liaison. Francis started at the fair as a kid, showing cows himself. And the fair board
1790.
Yeah, 98, 99.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just after the Civil War, maybe. I don't know. But it's exciting because the fair actually netted a profit last year, which is that itself is news because we have a challenge with that. A lot of people want to have bigger concerts and things, but these guys have done a good job of making sure what they do is good for the fair. They want to be sustainable. They want to have a fair next year. It costs $200,000 to start the fair. They need that much money to start. That's their goal, is to be ready to start for the next year and the year after that. So Dean Maynard and the rest of the fair board, they're doing great, and I'm excited about what they're going to do this year.
All right. Crawford County Commissioner Eric Henry joining us here this morning. 6 more weeks of winter, early spring. What's the prediction?
Well, I know. I heard they wanted to replace the groundhog with a coin flip, and that was kind of hurtful. I mean, I think the Punxsutawney Phil thing, I think in Crawford County, we like to find a Crawford County Chuck or something to work because think about what that does just for Punxsutawney every year, right? But I sure hope we see some more sun. That's all I want to see. I heard next week we might be able to see some sun. So.
Yeah. You don't get calls from PETA, do you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Like the Crawford County Fair is good to go. No issues there?
Yeah. If they want to call my phone, they can like anybody else. But I'm not going to get PETA calls this month anyway. So.
Good to see you this morning.
Nice to see you.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.